now, and I am also going to be recording the webinar, and it will be circulated to all of you, as well as available for the cohort in the Accelerator Handbook. And that's great for you all to be aware that we do compile all of our webinar and session recordings that are available into the Accelerator Handbook. So that's a useful tool for you to reference those key resources and recordings that have occurred throughout the program. Welcome to everybody, first or second, and introduce myself for most of you. I have had the pleasure to meet at least virtually, but I'm Tricia Dinkle. I'm the Northeast Program Manager. I also want to recognize and welcome Beth Zonas, our Regional Director, and Ken Hayes. Ken Hayes is also on the line. He's the Executive Director for the Cleantech Open. So thank you to the Cleantech Open team, and finally, hi Ken, and finally Kristen Chen, our remarkable summer intern who's joining us from Northeastern. She is also on the line, so that's the Cleantech Open team. Thank you all for joining us for today's webinar. It's a key subject for many different reasons, increasingly relevant, and has been for many years and will continue to be. And it is my true pleasure to welcome and to introduce Lora Babb of Manomet. Lora is, I actually have met Lora through a mentor connection, so a mentor that is plugged into the main ecosystem and innovation and business industry up north, has made the introduction, and Laura and I have really enjoyed getting to know one another, as well as getting to know how our organizations can support one another and find commonalities there. So as a brief introduction, I'll let Laura speak a little bit more to her background, but wanted to provide at least an overview. So Lora runs Manomet's U360 Business Sustainability Internship Program. So the U360 program helps create a more sustainable world by engaging both college students and small businesses. It's essentially training the next generation of systems manager through its sustainability workshops, career skill development, and the opportunity to learn firsthand how sustainability is applied in the real world. On the same token, the students are also connecting Manomet with hundreds of small businesses nationwide to help them increase their sustainability and reduce their environmental impact. So with that, it is my true pleasure to introduce Lora Babb.
Thank you so much, Tricia, and thank you for having me, and thank you all for being here today to talk about this very relevant and what I find to be a really exciting topic. So as Tricia said, I'm Lora Babb, and I am the program manager for our U360 Business Sustainability Internship Program at Manomet. And I do have a slide deck, so I'm gonna go ahead and share that right now. And hopefully everybody will be able to see that. Okay, can everyone see that? All right, good. So I just wanted to start by taking a second to, as Tricia said, talk a little bit about my background and Manomet and U360. So I'm a Mainer through and through, born and raised in Portland, Maine, and I live here still today. And I went to College of the Atlantic, that's where I graduated from, up in Bar Harbor, Maine, for anybody who's familiar with the Acadia National Park region. And my undergraduate degree is in human ecology. And after many years in the professional world, I went on to get a master's of environmental law and policy with a concentration in climate change from Vermont Law School. And my professional experience, you know, I've many years in the sustainability field, largely in the for-profit sector. So I was the director of marketing and sustainability for a small regional organic restaurant chain. I also started my own nonprofit right out of undergrad, and so have the experience of running, starting and running my own small organization. And then I've also worked with different nonprofits in the capacity of sustainability and working with small businesses on sustainability issues. So kind of my background, and I came to Manomet about 5 years ago. And Manomet is, we are a nonprofit organization, and our mission, as it says right here, is applying science and engaging people to sustain our world. So we have been around for 51 years, and we got our start in ornithology. So we began as a migratory bird research organization, and about 20 years or so ago, it started to become very apparent that climate change was impacting bird migration. And we began to evolve and expand our programming to start working with humans with the idea that, birds and other species may be deeply impacted by climate change, but they will not be the species to solve it. And that responsibility lies with one species. So we really started to expand our programming. And today, this map that you see here is our impact map. So we have partners and we do work all through the Western Hemisphere. And we really the focus of our work is engaging partners that can create change on the ground. So we're just an organization of about 30 to 35 people, and we're able to have this huge impact because of the partnerships that we leverage. And most of those partnerships are with the for-profit sector. So, we really believe that we can't achieve the goals and targets that we have with these complex, environmental, social, and economic challenges without the for-profit sector. Not only, just the sheer size of that sector of our economy that the for-profit sector represents, but also just the resources they have and the leverage or the influence that they can leverage. So, it's their footprint and their influence that we really see them as such a critical partner in this work. And so, one thing I just want to say about Manomet is that we are a nonprofit. So, the perspective I'll be sharing today on ESG and sustainability is maybe through a slightly different lens than how you've heard it before, because we are not all business consultants. Our mission is to create a world where all people can thrive today and tomorrow. And so we really look at, working with businesses on how they can transform their practices to help us achieve that mission and goal. And just really quickly on the program that I manage, so U360 is an internship program. It's really more of an experiential education and professional development program for college students. And it's really about training the next generation to tackle these complex environmental, social, and economic challenges that we face and that will disproportionately impact their futures. So it's really, empowering them with the interpersonal skills, with the real world knowledge and understanding, and with the professional skills to get them hired right out of college so that they can start sort of affecting change from the inside and really helping businesses change their practices, and also just being effective change makers through their future workplaces and careers. And so the bulk of the curriculum for U360 involves these college students reaching out to small businesses nationwide to request an interview with them about their practices. And during that interview, we have an assessment tool for small businesses. So they conduct this assessment of the small businesses' environmental, social, and governance practices. And then we analyze the data, and then we connect these small businesses to our online toolkit that they can utilize to, we have business advisors, we have a resource library. So if these businesses choose to, take this further and really dive into their results and start creating a plan for how they can improve their sustainability, we have those resources. And so the students are really helping us connect with these businesses in far greater numbers than we could on our own, but then learning a tremendous amount in the process about how businesses operate, about how sustainability is applied in the real world, and developing exceptional professional skills. So it's really a win-win, because the businesses also get the opportunity to look at their business through a different lens, because our requirement for the students is that they connect with businesses that, at face value do not present as, typical sustainable businesses. And so really helping businesses that are at the beginning of their journey, looking at their company in a different way. So through that, I have a lot of experience working with small businesses on sustainability. And, I just wanted to touch on why Manomet began working with small businesses. So we really believe, my program is part of our Sustainable Economies Program, and we really believe that we can't create a sustainable economy without small businesses. And often small businesses are overlooked when it comes to sustainability. So a lot of the focus on sustainability initiatives is really the attention is on large corporations, or some of the incentives and initiatives can focus on individuals and homeowners, and really small businesses. There are over 30 million in this country. 99.7% of businesses in the US are small businesses. 6 million of them have a workforce. So 24 million are independent sole proprietors, but there are 6 million small businesses in this country with a workforce, and they provide nearly 50% of the jobs in the US. And so they have this tremendous impact in our economy, and yet research shows that they generate approximately 65% of the pollution that comes from the business sector. So there's a disproportionate footprint to their economic impact or contribution. And so, 65% of pollution from the business sector is obviously a very significant number. But like I said, they're largely overlooked when it comes to sustainability. And, we believe that has to do with a variety of different factors. One just being the sheer number of them. Business owners have, as you all know, massive time constraints. You're juggling a million things, and it can be really hard to get in front of a small business owner about anything that doesn't directly relate to the here and now, or your customer, or your product. And so having these conversations about something that's not an urgent need can be challenging. But one of the things that is really exciting about small businesses is working with them is when you can have a conversation with a business owner, you're actually speaking to the decision maker. And so changes can happen if they feel so inspired pretty quickly. And so we really, we started working with small businesses about 6 years ago on sustainability for all of these reasons. So I wanted to just talk for a minute about the background of the triple bottom line, because that's what we're really here to talk about today. So the triple bottom line, we have these acronyms up at the top. So triple bottom line, people, profit, planet, ESG. So, what do they each mean? And they all sort of mean the same thing, but they're slightly different. The triple bottom line first came about in 1994. And the idea behind it originally was, if you think of the history of our capitalist society, businesses historically have been seen to have the one purpose or two purposes of providing a product and service and growing our economy. So, we are capitalists here in the US, and so that's the purpose that business served for many, many decades. And around, I guess, the 90s, this idea started to come about that perhaps businesses had more of a responsibility than just generating a profit or providing a product and service. And also on the flip side, that just looking at a profit and loss statement as the measure of success or the cost of doing business discounted the environmental and social costs of doing business. And then, like I said, on the flip side, the measure of a business's success, can also include, how they are stewards of the environment, how they impact society. So really, there started to become this sort of increasing idea or mounting pressure that businesses had a greater responsibility than it had, for decades and decades, and that businesses more and more were facing these expectations to be good stewards of the planet, to not degrade the planet, ideally to leave it better than they found it, so to have positive impacts on the planet and also on society. So the original iteration of the triple bottom line was the term people, profit, planet. So really taking into account the three measures of success or measures of the cost of doing business that a business should consider. And then in more recent years, that terminology has shifted to ESG, which is the most common term used today, which stands for environmental, social, and governance. And really, that change recognizes that profit is the result of strong sustainability practices. So rather than having it be part of the term, ESG really, what it's saying is strong environmental practices, strong social practices, and really solid governance practices will boost your profit. So it'll help the one bottom line that businesses still care the most about, because it's what determines whether they will stay in operation or not. So a quick snapshot of these three categories. The environmental facets of the triple bottom line really consider, like I said, how a company performs as a steward of nature. So looking at things like climate, how it impacts climate change, energy usage, waste management, the way that they utilize resources. And it can be, again, part of this section can be about positively influencing the environment as well. And then the social section of the triple bottom line really looks at the relationships between the business and their key stakeholders. So their employees, their suppliers, their customers, and community. And then the governance is really very straightforward, how a company is governed. And this is the one section of the triple bottom line that sometimes gets overlooked by the other two, because it is primarily internal within a company. But this is, in my view, one of the, they're all important, but governance is critically important, because you can have a business with a really strong environmental or social mission that is doing great work out in the, in society and the community. But if they're not managed well and they're not running their business in a healthy way, then that business may not be here in 6 months. And so having really strong governance is critically important as well. So there are, multiple reasons why a business may want to prioritize their triple bottom line and really shift their thinking in terms of management to this three-pronged approach. One, the two top bullets here are the two facets that we're seeing that are most driving ESG forward right now. So one is investor driven, where more and more investors want to see a company's ESG portfolio. They want to see what a business's plan is for, what their environmental practices are, social practices, and really that internal governance. And largely this is a risk management reason. So, what I hear from my network that work in this field, that really investors want to avoid, they want to see a mile away who the next Volkswagen is or Wells Fargo, and really it's really about managing the risk of the investments that they're putting into these companies. So that's really driving ESG forward, as is consumers. So, and both of these could be their own webinar. So there's a lot to talk about in each of those. And so consumers can really drive sustainability forward. And all of you are in the startup phases of businesses that are going to be addressing some issue that, may be driven by consumer demand, but your mission is, consumer facing, that you are going to be part of the solution to some of these environmental challenges. So I'm not going to touch too much on those two, and I really want to focus on the third, which is the viability of your company. So that's, we're really talking about the operational sustainability of your business, and that's what I wanted to focus on primarily today, is the internal benefits to your company and the internal reasons why the triple bottom line can be a really valuable way to go when planning out your business and your business plan. So I want to start by just defining the word sustainability when it comes to businesses. So this is working for a sustainability nonprofit. We get asked this question a ton of, what do you mean by the word sustainability? It's kind of a buzzword, and the more people hear it, the less people seem to know what you're talking about. And so the way that I think about business sustainability is really, if you look at the root word of sustainable, it is to sustain something. So the ability to continue something indefinitely without it being depleted or destroyed, and something that can stand the test of time. And so oftentimes people think about, natural resource sustainability, so not depleting water supplies and whatnot. But if you think of your business as that behavior that you would like to continue indefinitely, then you can start looking at the triple bottom line as a method for sustaining your business. And that's really what we talk about with small businesses, is that, the practices that are good for the planet and the practices that are good for society are actually really good for your company. And so, I just wanted to state that right out of the gates, that's what I'm referring to when I talk about the viability of your business as a compelling reason for the triple bottom line. So on the flip side of that, in order to sort of make the case for why the triple bottom line can be so important, we have to look at just the challenges that small businesses face when it comes to success. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with this graph, but 20% of businesses fail by the first year, 34% fail by their second year, 50% fail by their fifth year, and 70% of operations will no longer be in business by their 10th year. So the odds and are stacked against small businesses. So survival is very challenging for small businesses. There's extensive competition. There's this is always small businesses have always faced challenges to success, but the 21st century has just ramped everything up. I mean, there are market-based challenges that are there's all different types of competition that we've never seen before. In the 20th century and whatnot. So virtual business models and whatnot. And so competition is stiffer than it ever has been. There are rapidly, changes in industry and technology. Consumer demand can fluctuate, but we also are dealing with climate impacts, which is a newer thing for businesses. So we're in a time where, depending on where you're located or depending on what industry you're in, climate change can deeply impact your business. All you have to do is look at some of the parts of our country that have had wildfires or hurricanes, and or what's happening right now with coronavirus, and seeing just how vulnerable small businesses can be. And so we really it kind of speaks to just the challenges that businesses face. Like I said, so small businesses, as opposed to large corporations, they're more narrow financial margins. Small businesses face greater supply chain vulnerability because you have smaller buying power. You have fewer resources, generally speaking, potentially limited human resources to be able to do what you want to do. The burden of regulatory compliance falls harder on small businesses. Small businesses often face workforce challenges, and like I said, really increased competition. So there are a lot of challenges that you're facing just as a company, aside from what it is that you're offering with your product or service. So just to sustain as a business. But on the flip side, there are a lot of strengths that small businesses have in comparison to a large corporation that make sustainability, to make small businesses prime for focusing on the triple bottom line. So one is more accessible management. So as I said before, part of the reason we love working with small businesses is because we can get we can connect with the decision maker. And so there's far less bureaucracy in a small business than there is in a large corporation. And so that can help make a business quite nimble and adapt to shifting demand. So there is this adaptability that comes with small businesses that we don't see, that can be more complicated with a large corporation, let's put it that way. And so, if you look around right now during the coronavirus, I don't know about your communities, but I'm seeing a lot of small businesses and hearing about that, businesses dramatically changing what they offer, fundamentally changing their business model to meet this moment. And so small businesses are quite adaptable and nimble. And then there's just this inherent innovation that comes from starting and running your own small business. And so, that's something that can be really capitalized on when it comes to sustainability. And so, I don't know where there's, there we go. So the ESG, when it comes to small businesses, is really, like I said, it's really about the long-term viability of your business. So when I wanted to kind of look at ESG through the lens of a small business or a startup, things to be thinking about at this stage in your operations, because this is a really amazing opportunity, because you are creating your business right, as we speak. And in my experience working with small businesses, it is much harder to retrofit your business after being in operation for however long than it is to future fit your business. And that's kind of a common term when discussing ESG, that really thinking about the triple bottom line from your planning stage and building your business based on this framework. Because once you're fully in operation and, kind of have business as usual and your systems in place, it can be really hard to sort of retroactively change that. And oftentimes what we see is a lot of small businesses out of the gates, because, finances are a big consideration. A lot of small businesses kind of start out by making decisions based on what's most cost effective, for example, and sort of taking that myopic view of just the economics of your business. And oftentimes some of the practices that could be the most beneficial for your company in the long run may involve an upfront investment, but will have significant payoff and reward. And so really thinking of your company holistically from the outset, we believe leads to a greater chance of long-term viability and success. So in the environmental facet of the triple bottom line, we're really looking at resource management, efficiency of your operations, and what it is that you offer to the public. And I'll get into these in a bit more detail in a moment, but just wanted to give sort of the overview of each category. And in the social section, like I said, this is really about the stakeholders and people connected to your business. We're looking at the practices and policies related to your employees, your customers, and your community. And then governance is really going to be about your internal practices, policies, and systems. So how you run your business, and maximizing your practices in all three of those areas. And this is kind of the key slide here is, what would be in this for your business? How is this going to help you? So maximizing your practices in these three areas, and not just in the sense of, what is the mission of your company? Because all of you have, an environmental, clean energy focus to your business, or clean tech focus to your business. So all of your companies are already part of the solution. Like I said before, you're addressing one of these, some environmental challenge. And so we're really talking about that operational sustainability and how the way that you manage your company and your internal practices could lower costs, for one. That's a big one. It can give you a competitive advantage. It is much better risk management. It can increase your brand and give you, increase your customer relations. It can help with supply chain compliance. It can certainly help improve recruitment and retention of your employees. It increases the adaptive capacity of your business. And again, it can increase the overall viability of your company, and most importantly, the resiliency of your company. And resiliency is definitely a word that we're hearing a lot about right now with small businesses, being so challenged right now with coronavirus, is, which businesses are the most resilient to these big external threats that they're facing. And so in short, what I always kind of talk with my students about is that the triple bottom line, in the most generalized terms, can really help a business save money, make money, and reduce risks. So, very generally speaking, a lot of the practices in the environmental section of the triple bottom line is really about cutting costs and saving your business money. And then a lot of the practices, and some of them, if some of your initiatives and practices are public facing, and they can help, create this brand for you of a sustainable business, it can also help you make money, because, consumer demand is really shifting in the direction of wanting to support businesses that, and as I said, investors as well, that are affecting change in the environmental or social realm. And then in the social section, though, investing in your workforce and having strong relationships with your stakeholders can really help increase the productivity of your business and help you make money. And then the governance section is largely about risk management. And so all three of these very generalized terms, will improve your bottom line by, in combination with each other. And then this is kind of the breakdown of what to be thinking about at this stage for each of these facets of the triple bottom line. And there will be time for questions. So if you want to, ask specific questions about how any of these would apply to your business or where you are in your operations, and we can talk in more detail, but just generally speaking, in the environmental section, really looking at, the common theme that I would say for environmental is reducing. There's reduce, reuse, and recycle, but reducing and being as efficient as possible with your resources is the way to go in the 21st century, and is really going to lead to those lower costs that I was talking about. So looking at the most energy efficient equipment that you can use, the energy efficiency of the building that you operate in. I know a lot of you in the audience actually are in, the mission of your company is around energy consumption and efficiency, but, making sure that carries over into your internal practices. Looking at resource use, so whether it is, if there's a water intensive component of your business, so looking at the efficiency of the equipment you're using for water. And then, there's also something under resource use, we can talk about chemicals and toxins. So, even if the service or product you provide doesn't use any sort of materials or toxins or whatnot, there are still decisions you can make internally around that subject. So, what are the cleaning supplies that you're using? We even talk to small businesses about air fresheners, that they're, pest control, and just, what are you doing to help protect your employees and or your customers from exposure to potentially harmful chemicals and whatnot. Again, so the impact product or service, I kind of skipped over that because all of you fit that category. So that's, again, does your product or service help? Are you helping to, with a solution to some environmental challenge? Waste management is a big one, because waste is something that every single business has to manage for. So not every business is water intensive or energy intensive, but every business has waste of some kind. And so, again, waste in the waste management realm, reducing is optimal, and then reusing would be next, and then whatever you can't, whatever you have to use, just making sure, that you have strong recycling practices, but minimizing your material use as much as possible. So whether that's paper, doing everything as paperless as possible, kind of doing a whole inventory of your resource consumption, and then what happens on the others, what happens post-use, and then looking at your supply chain. So again, supply chain is a subject that could be its own webinar as well, but really having a strong understanding of your suppliers' policies and practices when it comes to environmental and social sustainability. So purchasing from companies that have a strong triple bottom line as well will go a lot, really help with that vulnerability that small businesses have with supply chain. Because one of the things that makes small businesses the most vulnerable is a lack of knowledge of their suppliers. And then in the social section, a lot of the work that we do in the social section is really heavy on your workforce, because for those of you who have companies with a staff currently or are planning to have a staff, you can't operate without employees. And so I would say that of all facets in the social section, investing in your workforce is probably the most important. And and it can be done in a number of ways, and some that don't cost anything. So the first here is creating an environment and a culture within your company that really supports innovation and collaboration. So really valuing the voices and the perspectives and the experience of your employees, having them part of the decision-making process, really kind of having the mindset that we as individuals only know as much as we know, and sort of that top-down approach, or having the owners making all the decisions, can sometimes be really limiting in the potential for new and creative ideas. And so kind of creating this culture where employees can come to you with their ideas, and then especially where they are recognized and valued for those ideas too, and the contributions they make to your business. Another is investing in talent development. So looking at both internal and external workforce development opportunities, whether that is, supporting your employees to be able to go to conferences or professional development, taking courses, to keep their accreditation and whatnot. So those are some examples of external workforce development. But then internally, you can, do things where there's sort of job rotation or mentorships or apprenticeships. So really investing in the talent that you have and kind of grooming people to move up in your company, can go a long way, and a long way towards retention for sure. Workforce support, what we're talking about there is really, again, sort of about the culture that you're creating and the benefits that you're offering. So, do you support the work-life balance of your employees? Do you offer benefits to them? So whether that's, health insurance, paid time off, retirement account. So, how well are you supporting your workforce, the health of your workforce, and the well-being? And because, not doing so can lead to burnout. It can lead to employees wanting to go to another company that can give them better benefits. And so there's a lot about your competitive advantage that can really happen with what you're doing for workforce support. And then another facet is employee evaluation. So having a system in place where you are giving, regular and ongoing feedback to your employees, starting an employee's, tenure with you by laying out very clearly the expectations and responsibilities of the position, having, some sort of system for formal evaluation. So whether that's, an annual formal review, or if you do it quarterly, there's so many different methods for doing employee reviews, but really what's most important is having some sort of system, formal, informal, where employees have a sense of how they're doing in the job, and so that they can perform to their best ability. They're doing what you want them to be doing and what's best for the company, but that they also feel that sense of value coming from you, that you're taking the time to give them that feedback. And then the last one, and I'll come back to the social license, but the last one is, issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's, really, that's a very big subject right now that a lot of companies are talking about, and a lot of consumers are really looking to the businesses' policies on DEI. But aside from what's happening public facing, coming back internally, creating an environment where, employees feel equitable in terms of their compensation, where people's different viewpoints and, just facets of themselves as individuals, where they feel included, is so important, not only for workplace culture, but, there's also in terms of risk management when it comes to, liability, should you not have some of these policies in place. And then lastly, there's the social license, which is the way that you are perceived by the public. So there's a lot of opportunities here for charitable giving, and that's something we can talk about more in the Q&A if you're interested. But charitable giving is also huge opportunities for marketing as well, and there are tax incentives for donating to charitable nonprofits. Excuse me. And then lastly, in the governance, again, this is how you choose to run your company. So looking at the organizational structure. So what is the management structure, the org chart, if you will? Who makes the decisions? Do you have a decision-making body that you consult with, whether that's an advisory board or a board of directors? Do you have, an accountant and a lawyer that you're consulting with to make various decisions? And that's, a large part of risk management is getting outside perspectives and experience to help with your major decision-making. And then also with risk management is looking at how your financials are managed. So, do you have a checks and balances system? Do you have, separation of duties when it comes to your financials? Strategy and planning. So are all of your decisions, do you have a strategic planning process that happens annually? Do you regularly revisit your business plan? Are all major projects or products, initiated after doing extensive financial projections to gauge, the return on investment and risk. So really, so much about governance is, are you being very methodical and strategic about how you're operating your business? Or, we see a lot of businesses, I see a lot of businesses that don't even have a business plan. And then, a lot of their decisions are really just ad hoc and kind of in the moment. And so, which comes with a lot of risk. And then the big part of governance is also transparency. And that's probably the one that people hear about the most. And so transparency with your customers, with your employees, with your suppliers and investors. So so there's a lot to that one. But yeah, all very important in terms of the long-term viability of your company. So I know we have a little bit of time left, so there's a lot to cover in this, but I wanted to open it up to questions at this point, and I can stop sharing so we can.
Wow. Laura, that was fantastic. I'm Beth Zonas, and I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I run Clean Tech Open here in the Northeast, and I work with Tricia, and I am so glad that you came. This is fabulous. And I wanted to make sure that everybody realizes that what you're talking about is so core to what Clean Tech Open is about. And really what you're talking about is essentially the essence of our mission and our philosophy, and, being sustainable in all the different ways that you talked about. So thank you. And it's great to meet you. I did want to ask you a couple of quick questions, and I would suspect that this is on people's minds as well, which is about, you talked a lot about internal operations, and I wanted to just focus a moment on external impact and also about the viability point that you made. Mm-hmm. So you said that that doing these kinds of things help people's viability. Do you have statistics that actually show that attention to these sustainability or ESG topics really do lead to profitability and growth? And then as a follow-on, do they lead to more impact in the areas of of environmental and social results out there?
Those are great questions. And I will probably have to get back to you on the exact numbers because I don't have those on the top of my head, but yes, definitely the connection between this sort of internal operational sustainability and long-term viability is definitely backed up, because as I said before, so many of the practices that are good for the planet and good for society are good for your bottom line. So again, just the example of energy or water efficiency. So, keeping in mind that every kilowatt of electricity you use, you're paying for. So if you can, make your building more efficient, or you have energy efficient equipment, or even doing things like methodically making sure you're shutting off lights at the end of the night and turning off power strips. Just there's so many little things that you can do that are saving money on your utility bill, and that is just freeing up capital that you're not spending on the cost of doing business. And so so that's just one example. But then the other question you had about in terms of does it lead to external impact? Part of why I was excited to come talk to this group is because, as I've said, said a couple times, you're all part of the solution. You're all creating businesses to address, using clean tech to address one of the pressing challenges that we're facing. And your businesses are the type of companies that we want to stay in business. And so to be able to have a strong triple bottom line and strong operational sustainability will allow you to continue doing the work that we so desperately need you to be doing. And we need companies like yours coming at this from so many different angles. And so it's always really fascinating for me to do assessments of green businesses or, public facing sustainable businesses and analyzing their internal practices and seeing that there really is a disconnect there, that there tends to be a large focus on making sure that the mission and the product and the service is done right, but then there are all these little things happening behind the scenes that are actually working counter to that. And so, so there's a direct correlation between keeping your business healthy and strong and being able to continue to have impact. But it's also because sustainability is becoming so much more important to consumers and individuals, these are the types of businesses that people want to support as well. And so, it all kind of connects to itself. Did that answer your question?
Yep. I'd love to see your stats if you're able to pull them up.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, I don't know if everybody here is muted, but I'm sure other people must have questions and comments, and maybe Trisha does.
So I do want to echo Beth, to you, Laura, to thank you for this. And again, I don't want to cut off any of the questions, but I do want to mention that in building this partnership between Manomet's U360 program and the Clean Tech Open, there potentially will be another opportunity, and we offered it last year as well, for companies that are participating in this year's accelerator go on to become our alumni companies to volunteer their company to be one of the small businesses that participate in the business assessments that U360 program conducts. This is, really a pretty minimal commitment on your part as the business owner, but what you get out of it is not only, a assessment that is completely confidential in that sense, and you can really start thinking about some of the questions that you might have not thought before, or start looking at some of your practices and the impacts that they have, but as well as you get access to very robust toolkit that the U360 program offers in order to help improve some of those, or to hone in on the sustainability focus that you want to have for your company, or some of the challenges that you might not be able to overcome alone. Those resources can provide some of those answers, or some of those additional organizations or opportunities that can help you manage those challenges. So that and Laura and I coordinated on last year, and would love to continue to, at the very least, open it up as an offer. So that's something that I just wanted to make sure that all the companies that are online now are aware that is an opportunity that could come up for them if they're wanting to volunteer, and more information will be provided on that.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And we, even without that, the Route 3, our toolkit that is online, I can put that in the chat, the address too. You can take the benchmark assessment even without doing it with a student, but I highly recommend doing it with a student instead, just because it's more thought-provoking conversation. And it's and yes, when the time comes next year for the students to be reaching out to businesses, I would absolutely love any and all of you who are interested in having your business go through this assessment tool to participate. It's a very light lift. It's about 45 minutes of your time, and it really helps the student learn a lot about the subject. So yeah.
So we actually do have a couple questions in the chat box that I can read to you, and the first comes from Claudia with Atrevida, and she's asking, where should a small company start if we're the only 2 members of the company in our early stage? Do we focus on creating a plan for the future?
Yes, and I would say that your starting point is somewhat dependent on what your growth plan will ideally be. So as you're creating your business plan and looking at what do the first 5 years look like, your plan for ESG would vary significantly depending on do you intend to stay a 2-person operation, or at least a very small operation? Are you looking to grow significantly larger than that? And so the most important part is to incorporate the ESG principles into the planning from the beginning. So as you're looking at, like I said, the growth plan or what the next 5 years look like, factoring in these different facets of the triple bottom line as part of that plan. So thinking of it less as a separate mechanism and more of just a way to frame the planning of your company. And so, some of the areas that I really recommend looking at, there's just some low-hanging fruit, no matter the size of your business, no matter how small or big. So looking at just your resource use. So doing sort of a personal audit, or you can, there are a lot of companies that can do audits for free, depending on how extensive you want to get, but looking at your energy use, your waste management, your resource use, if there's anything related to transportation. But then, really thinking about the social piece is a big area that I would recommend focusing on. Is so if you do have plans to increase your workforce, thinking from this stage, what kind of benefits you're going to offer, or what systems are you going to have in place in terms of, as I said before, like talent development or review processes. Just what is that relationship going to look like between the owners and your workforce? And then thinking about marketing, that's going to be part of everybody's business plan, I'm sure. But thinking of marketing in terms of an opportunity for promoting your sustainability. So a big part of social sustainability is giving back to the community. So, and that goes hand in hand with marketing. So what are some ways that you can promote your company and your brand in a way that's also good for your local community, or the issue, you could look more broadly at the issues areas that you're working in. So those are some pieces. And then obviously, governance can be in place no matter what size operation. So thinking of those tenets of a strong governance. I don't know.
Thank you, Laura. And the next question actually comes from Ryan, who's asking, is it possible to get more personalized input on what companies can do to meet ESG goals?
For me, or just in general?
That is a great clarification. Ryan, I don't know if you're able to unmute yourself or to clarify on that.
I guess I would say a little bit of both in general, and also like books of resources, and also possibly from you or from Manomet.
Yes, so I can speak to the part about me, like myself and Manomet. So there's certainly the opportunity to kind of dive deeper and customize the information that I shared. So depending on what stage you are in operations, because I think Trisha had mentioned that there are maybe some companies participating this summer that are already in operation. And so, if you have some business operations that you can reflect on, you can do the assessment that we have, and then that creates a customized SWOT analysis of your business specific to sustainability. And then we can, we have resources in our toolkit that can be a little bit more customized, but then we can kind of dive deeper with you as well and really look at how to interpret your results and what that might mean in terms of a plan going forward. If you, so that's more of a reflective look at your operations, because if you take the assessment right at the startup stage, the way the questions are worded are not quite in the right, past present tense for it to fit, but you can see all the different categories that we're talking about, and then we can have a conversation about what that might look like going forward in the planning stages as opposed to retrospectively. I believe Trisha had mentioned to me earlier that there are some resources within the curriculum. Is that correct? And then there's also well, I guess we can start there. I mean, there's obviously other business resources out there and advisors and whatnot, but
yeah, and if I can just interject, there are two things that are coming up that are going to be really interesting for our cohort to participate in. One is a software package to do life cycle analysis. And so stay tuned on that, folks. And then the other is an impact assessment process that will be introduced to everybody as well. And that is related to that's taking into consideration the life cycle analysis. So it's a bit of a maybe just a part of what you talked about, but the life cycle analysis piece will be included in both of those. And I think that could be also really interesting for everyone. So stay tuned, all.
Great. Thanks, Beth. One final question I think that we can, that we do have time for, and it comes from David asking, what do you think of efforts to measure how successful companies are doing in ESG metrics? What's your experience?
Can you repeat that again, Tricia?
Sure. The question is, what do you think of efforts to measure how successful companies are doing in ESG metrics? What's your experience?
That's a really good question. So admittedly, my experience is, again, with small businesses. So the metrics for small business are very different than, some of the measurements that are being done and some of the tools for large companies. So, but I am part of different networking groups, and I interact with different sustainability professionals who do work for these larger companies. And so I hear just about the different, whether it's certification programs or metric systems. And it seems that, there are challenges with all of them. And that's the thing about sort of measurement tools, is that it can be somewhat challenging to put a linear, quantitative system onto a complex system, right? So there are certainly very direct things that can be measured. So you can measure energy consumption, you can measure waste, but there's a lot of just nuanced things that are harder to quantify when it comes to sustainability. And so I think some of the challenges that we see are measuring change behavior can be kind of tough. Measuring the employee engagement, some of the social aspects can be rather challenging. With our toolkit, we took all of that into account when designing it. And really, we designed it in such a way where it's not meant to be sort of a comprehensive audit of your company. It's really meant to just have a conversation starting about sustainability and really thinking, and it's really meant to be more of a self-assessment and a kind of a self-benchmarking. So really measuring your progress and whatnot. But it's, I think we're still waiting for sort of that perfect tool. And I don't know if that answers the question, but it's, yeah, okay, great.
So what I will say is we will, again, circulate the recording for this webinar along with Lora's slides, if she's so willing to do so, and the resources that she mentioned in terms of the assessment that's available online for you to take for your business, if that's something that would be helpful in establishing the state of your current operations, or at the very least to take a look through. That being said, if you have any other questions that you'd like me to pass along to Lora, feel free to email those to me directly, and I'm happy to get them over to her and facilitate that. So once again, Lora, thank you so much. This was a great conversation. It was great to see you as always, and thank you all for attending. And we look forward to seeing you at the next virtual event.
Yeah,
so have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks.